Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another installment, Complex Mind, Simple Man. And I'm as true to my word. I said it wasn't going to be all that frequent here, finishing out the year. A lot of stuff going on. I'm willing to bet a lot of things going on out there for you too. This is a time for family, a time for celebration, and it's also a time of difficult experiences for so many people, and I'm not excluded from that group. But I hope that you are also surrounded by those who love you and those who can give you support and encouragement as we finish out this most difficult of years and get ready for next year and all the joy and also the trials that are going to come with it too. So all of that being said, thank you so much for coming back, spending a little bit more time with me. And I am going to now begin an introduction, yet another introduction into a discussion that I hope to hold with you guys. And hey, please check me out on Complex Mind, Simple Man. That's where you can find me on Facebook. Also, you can find me that way on YouTube. And if you're ever having trouble being able to find me on those platforms, because if you don't type it just right, they don't seem to be able to help you get where you want to go, you can also come to complexsimpleman.com. Again, that's complexsimpleman.com. It's a new website, just getting it underway. So yes, it's a little thin, but together we'll continue to build that out and see where we can go with it. But from there, you can get to YouTube videos and back to the original content that I'm speaking of. But without further delay, this video. So this installment is, like I said, another introduction, but this one is as we begin to talk about separation and what that really means. If you've been seeing some of my posts, you've probably noticed that I frequently am using the hashtag time to separate. Well, what does that mean? Because they're separate, they're separate. Same word, how you use it, big difference. And I want to kind to begin to go into that discussion. I have a number of political conversations, typically on Facebook, with other people who are of like mind or a slightly different opinion. And what we share is a real frustration with the political environment that we as black people are operating in, whether it be with our allies or against our adversaries. It's really hard when you have to fight your own quote unquote party at the same time as you're trying to work with that same party. And when I say separate, I am talking about, it's less about a physical separation because we are integral and we are tied to this country for better or for worse. And physical separation just simply isn't much of an option. For those who can, hey, you're welcome to that if that's what you wish to do. But we are in a very mixed society. We're just not very well integrated. And there's a big difference. So what am I talking about when I say separate and separate? America has a storied past and present and future of constantly saying inclusion and practicing exclusion. Separate but equal. If you know a little bit about our history here, was a slogan put out there saying, hey, we're going to institute Jim Crow and we'll call it separate but equal. You got your own schools, you got this, you got that, but we'll make sure that by law you don't have the resources or the freedoms to actually be equal because you're really going to be second-class citizens. But we'll use the term separate but equal. Well, separate hasn't worked so well that way for us. So I am now saying maybe it's time to separate. Maybe it's time to take a look at what we really are dealing with and the experiences that are overwhelmingly the norm in this country. Now, I'm speaking primarily through the lens of the black community because that's where I come from. But unfortunately, much of what I'm about to say translates into almost every other group. That lets me know, perhaps it'll let you know, that this is baked into the pie. These are the ingredients that make up America, and being able to fix that, I don't know that we can. You have to find a way to function within it and continue to try to exert will or force to affect it. But unless we're willing to tear it apart and completely start over, which no one really is ready to do, we aren't going to be able to fix it. So I say separate. I say look at the history of this nation and ask yourselves truly, what can we expect based off of where we've been and where we are for where we're going? For so long, we have fought, bled, died, even killed on behalf of a country, begging it to accept us. And the country has made it clear it won't. So I'm not even starting with slavery. I'm going to start really towards the Jim Crow era, because that's much more recent. And unfortunately, because of the broken educational process that we've all grown up in, it's much more ephemeral. It's harder to really put your finger on. But we were separate from housing, right? They had to actually pass laws, right, to be able, for us to be able to own property and own real estate and live where we want, in theory. So in this video, it's bringing together a couple of concepts that have been bantied about in our community, especially as of late. The frustration with the political system as is reaching a boiling point where there is a very real and sincere, I think, feeling that it's time to just withdraw from all things politics and just let the Democrats fall on their face. What's so bad about Republicans compared to this? Right, that's a whole nother discussion, which I've had on other platforms. I invite you to check those out, and I'm probably going to do some more of those here. But here I'm talking about being separate and separating. So when we think of separate, or at least when I think of separate, oftentimes it triggers Jim Crow. You know, separate but equal, and the lies and the fallacies of that. During Jim Crow, real quick refresher here, there were laws that said that you couldn't live in the same neighborhood as white people. That it was actually punishable by law in some cases for a white person to rent to a black person or sell to a black person, to keep the communities homogenous, keep the races apart, all while being separate but equal. But all the resources stayed in one place. The resources stays with those who are being able to capitalize from the system and build asset wealth, get good paying jobs, being able to fight for better wages, all of those things, all the things that were barred from us. So this is during separate, okay? Then we had the Fair Housing Act, and we had various corrections as far as the 13th and 14th Amendment, and all these things came into play, and yet the laws still kept us separate. And I'm here to present a question, or I don't know, maybe just openly discussion, to say that I would contend that we're still separate. And we're separate because something is imposing its will to keep us separate. I mean, you look at the schools, you look at the housing, you look at the jobs, just look around you. We are separate. If you walk into most classrooms, what you will find is that they are swinging one way or the other disproportionately. And then if the classroom is more blended, what about the teaching staff? How does that represent the complexity of the student population? Well, then you start looking at the housing that surrounds those schools. What are the demographics of those communities? How integrated are those? Willing to bet once you reach the housing level, you will find entire subdivisions, entire communities that are completely separated, that are overwhelmingly one way or another. You'll have an almost all white neighborhood right next to an almost all black or black and Latino neighborhood. Is that on mistake? Are we self-sorting? Or is there something else going on? See, before we would say it was redlining, right? Where the banks actually got together and worked with the FHA and the other predecessor organization for the FHA and arranged that if you were black, you could not get a loan to live in this particular area. So they could mimic the Jim Crow era of outright saying you couldn't live here. So they put in redlining when they couldn't do that anymore so that they could do that. Well, now we have gerrymandering that works on a political level that is mimicking the redlining, and it's already the redlining, which is outlawed by law, is now taken care of by sorting that happens still at the banks. They just don't use the term. And also by your realtors who may think that they're doing you a favor, but oftentimes they're helping you self-separate. And then there's some of us who just simply want to be separate anyway. So it's this whole thing that works at the legal level all the way down to the social level, to where the legal level has failed people so much and for so long that there's a social structure that now underlies it that basically we separate by ourselves. Go into almost any group setting and you can really just observe it. Just step back and look at it. You'll find that most likely people feel more comfortable around people that they think that they hold more in common with. So you can go into a cafeteria, whether it be at a school or at a popular place like a workplace. And you'll find oftentimes the black people over here, the white people over there, or they're all mixed together. But then you look a little closer and the tables start to blend right back into separation. So we're still not together. And yet, from the viewpoint of my community, we keep asking to be together. We keep crying about not being together. But I ask you, is that really even what you want? Are your actions belying the words that you're using? See, I would say to stop. Stop demanding that you be included in something that doesn't want you. I'm not saying just let a new form of segregation take hold like Jim Crow. I'm certainly not saying that. What I'm saying is sometimes people just want their own space. And hopefully the spaces that you want to be in are spaces that are inclusive because they want to be. I would like for us to focus more of our energy that way. There needs to be, in my opinion, places or spaces where people who don't want to be around you don't have to be around you. And people you don't want to be around, you don't have to be around. I think that's okay. I think that especially in a society that is driven so much by commerce and money, that on a social level, see, political is a little different, but on a social level, if you go to a business and that business doesn't treat you well, it it's not outright saying no black people are allowed, you better speak English or don't be here, but it's more of you feel unwelcome. Why are you giving them your money? Stop. Go somewhere else, literally. There's always another option. Always in the current environment. No one holds a capital position on anything except maybe Amazon. And Amazon is very equal in how it just takes advantage of everybody. So there you go. But if the store or the business is discriminatory, don't go there. Stop begging people who don't like you and who don't want you to accept you. I don't care if you accept me. I don't care if you don't want me. I don't want you either. That's where I'm talking about as far as time to separate. We have to separate our minds and our culture from things that do not want us. See, we are constantly being rejected for wanting to be with someone or someone's who do not want us, and they make it clear because they won't let you get your loans. They won't let you buy the houses. They won't let you, you're always twice the unemployment rate. Your schools are less taken care of. If you get money, yeah, you get money from like Title I, but the money goes and it goes into whatever they're spending the money on to send in more security forces and more punishment mechanisms instead of more opportunities and more options and having to correct the police so that they're actually a part of your community as opposed to controlling your community. See, we keep asking people to do better by us instead of saying, you know what, you don't want me and I don't want you either. So I am going to separate from you. I don't want to listen to your music. I don't want to go to your little restaurant. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And I don't need you. Because there's someone else that is inclusive by nature. And I will give them my money. I will let them teach my children. I will let them employ me. I'm not begging you to accept me anymore. I'm not going to allow your opinion of me to affect my opinion of myself. And like I said, this is an introductory video. So I'm actually going to have follow-ups where I talk specifically about politics. How do we as black people take politics and create an actual plan of attack on how we can make it work for us? See, we're dealing with a moment right now where we're being forced to wake up and see that, yes, we've always said our votes are being taken for granted. Yeah, that's nothing new. But now we're saying, well, why am I not getting anything in return? And we're dealing with a crossroad moment where many are saying, well, I'll just withdraw. I would say to you, and I'm going to say to you in follow-ups, well, what comes next? And then you have others who are saying, we got to go all in. And we got to just overwhelm the system. Overwhelm the system. You got 13% of the population, and 20% of that population is either disenfranchised or blocked from voting. So how you overwhelm the system? I don't know, but let's talk about it. What comes next? See, wherever we're going to go, I'm going to come with you because I think that I can play a role in either case in helping us build some organization and some cohesion. But I'm just saying that everything that we do, what comes next? We have to build the infrastructures that will allow us to continue to be viable and grow in whatever the environment that follows. That's the politics side. But then we also have on the social side, our children. The prison industrial complex, I know that sounds like a little buzzword that's often used, but the prison industrial complex is real. It is part of the capitalist system. It exists to extract wealth and push it up to those who can now capitalize on said wealth. And it does that whether it can do it off of your body or if it can do that off of penalties and fees. And if you can't keep up with the penalties and fees, then it will use your body. Well, we are disproportionately targeted by that system. You can look at the events that have unfolded in Baltimore and where Mike Brown was murdered in Missouri. Wherever you want to go, you can find it. Our children, especially our boys, are some of the strongest learners up until third grade. And then something seems to happen. And then at that same time, we start to see where the punishments are often different across different ethnic groups, disproportionately against black boys. You're punished for just being who you are. And when you're punished for doing the same thing as someone else, your punishment is harsher. So you stop really enjoying education. You stop really enjoying learning. And you start seeing those who appear to have it better or have what you want are doing something different. They're in athletics, they're entertainment, they're doing something illegal or illicit. And since you're being stunted in wanting to explore education, you start trying to explore things you think you can attain. And that's a problem. How do we as a community get in there and interrupt that? You can't have our boys. But to do that, it's going to take some engagement. It's going to take some effort. Because as you can see in the B-roll, America has a way of sifting things out. We also have to look at economics. So we're twice the unemployment rate, no matter what the conditions of the economy are. Even when it's good, we're twice. If it's bad, we're twice. So how do we get a better shape? Do we do that by continuing to go to the same people who have created the system that keeps you twice the unemployment rate? Or do we learn from some of our neighbors and say, okay, well, how do we start to actually build, even though they may start out small, businesses that can hire my cousin who got out of jail, my brother who got out of jail, my sister who got out of jail, who can hire my nephew who is a star student and wants to learn about being a lawyer. Well, I can put him with a lawyer. My niece who wants to be a plumber, and then there's another black plumber. We can put him over there and get an apprenticeship. We're now hiring within our community, which is what much of our neighbors do, so that we can start to build our own opportunities. Separate your mind, right? Physically, you can be next to anybody and do anything. I can work with anybody. I can be with anybody. But I have to separate how I'm viewing things so that I can tell what is the message that is being given to everyone, and then what's the message out of that that's being directed to me. Now we'll start talking about media and entertainment and how we consume that, right? So there's so many different areas in which we need to begin the process of separating, because we've already experienced and we continue to experience what it is to be separate. The physical dynamics aren't going to change much. The mental, the cultural, the spiritual dynamics have to adjust if we want to improve the overall situation. Stop waiting for someone to reject you. Choose not to be included. Go where you're wanted. Go where you're employed. Go where you're respected. Go where you're loved. In cases where it's necessary, go where you're tolerated. And understand that you don't have to agree with someone and they don't have to agree with you in order for you to function with them. Get what you need. Start with the end in mind. Where are you trying to go? Let's reverse engineer that. See how we can take control from where we are of various aspects. I would contend the biggest one starting with our kids and our schools. And let's move. Let's do some things. So the discussion is going to continue. Thank you for everybody who joined me today. We really do appreciate that. Complex Mind, Simple Man. So like I said, you can find me on Facebook, Complex Mind, Simple Man. You can find me on YouTube, Complex Mind, Simple Man. And if you have any trouble finding me in those avenues, please check out complexsimpleman.com. So conversation will continue. This might be the last one until the new year. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you. And I hope that you're blessed, loved, and hey, let's just figure it all out and keep moving forward. Goodbye for now.